Well, welcome, guys, to a brand new podcast on Talk Fort Dodge called 20 Questions in 20 Minutes. We are today here with David Fierke and Chief Quinn again to talk about the case for 8, which I think we both talked to both of you. At first, I was like, this doesn't seem like it's a good idea. And, the more we look at it and the more we talk about police officers on the street and that stuff, the more I really need and think we should kind of get behind it as a community. But everybody needs to hear what it's all about, and I wanted to hear it from you guys. So we're just going to hit it, and here we go. Start the clock. Can you briefly explain the new franchise fee and what they are being proposed?
Okay, real brief. The franchise fee is a 5% fee on the gas and electric bills. Your gas bill will have a 5%, and your electric bill would also have a 5% through Mid-American. You'll see it on the bill. It'll be reflected and show the actual fee charge, and it's 5% of I guess gross revenues or the actual bill, and that money will be used to help support the police department and the case for 8, the adding of the additional officers.
Perfect. How will the revenue from these fees be used to benefit the community?
The money generated from this is going to go straight to the police department. We're going to add 8 extra officers over the next 2 years, 4 to the patrol, 3 on a community action team, and 1 is going to be another investigator. So obviously the big part of that will be public safety. So that's how the community is, as a whole, is going to benefit from this, is just public safety, and then that will have the trickle down, hopefully, effect of more business, more employees, safer Fort Dodge. So,
perfect. Why was a 5% increase chosen for the gas and light bill?
In the state of Iowa, municipalities are very limited on what they can collect for revenues and fees, and primarily we're property tax dependent. But in Fort Dodge, we don't have the ability to increase property taxes to pay for additional police. The gas and electric franchise fee has been a permitted revenue source for municipalities for decades. The city's just never used it. We've tried to just get along within our means, but now with the situations coming up where we think it's important to add the cops, that we thought we'd use it for this purpose. So, and it's probably one of very few revenue sources, about the only one I can think of that really is a significant and sustainable over time. Others are just one-time revenues, or they're not going to generate enough money to pay for this.
What are the anticipated financial impacts on the average household in Fort Dodge?
Okay, so the information we got from Mid-American is that the average additional cost on electric would be $3.70 and gas would be $3.15, so $6.85 a month would be the increase fee.
Wow. How will these funds specifically support public safety initiatives like adding new police officers?
it's going to go straight to the police. The money generated is just going to go straight to the police department budget. So,
Chief Quinn, can you tell us why adding 8 new police officers is essential right now?
I would say size of our city, we have less officers than some of our comparables that we look to when we do a lot of different studies and whatnot. Obviously, last year we had a pretty difficult year in Fort Dodge with some of the violent crime we had, homicides. So I think just adding these officers right now will help to change that perception that some people have of Fort Dodge, hopefully drive out a lot of the people that are wanting to do these terrible acts. And then in turn, that will turn around and hopefully keep giving Fort Dodge the continue the vision that we're trying to do with Fort Dodge, build this community, bring in more infrastructure, bring in more people, and give the community what they deserve, a nice, safe, wonderful community that they can strive and do great things. So
awesome. What other areas of city service will benefit from the additional revenue?
Well, I don't know. It's all going to the police, so I think it's a revenue source for the cops now. So it's that's where it's going.
Perfect. How will the city ensure transparency and accountability in how these funds are spent?
Well, with our annual budgeting process, the council has a bunch of workshops where each department's budget is gone through almost line by line, but maybe not necessarily line by line, but it'll show. And there'll be a line item in the police budget that will show franchise fee as a revenue source. So all of it will go in there. So that'll be very transparent. It'll show how much budget is, how much is actually received, how much is anticipated for the next year. And then, and that again obviously is public record, and it's discussed at public meetings, so people can see, oh yeah, it's actually going there. And then on the expenditure side, there'll be an annual expenditure budget that will, and part of it also is it's a city council action to set the authorized staffing levels. So that again is a public action at the council. Once this is approved, I'm assuming we'll have an action item to set the authorized staffing levels at 48, and then we'll go from there. So everything that makes sure this happens is done in a public form.
Perfect. Number 9 already. Can you explain the process that led to the decision to propose these franchise fees?
Yeah, I'll start. It was interesting, because Denny and I actually had the conversation. I think it was a holiday, it was like Veterans Day or something like that, but both of us were working. But it was in 23, and so 23 was an awful year for violence, and there was a lot of talk and what can be done, what can we do, and we had in a prior budget year tried to increase the police force by 3, and we were moving through the process and figured out that we could probably afford it. Well, then this information came from the state and erased like $400,000 of general fund revenues for it. And I go, well, there's the 3 officers that are gone. I mean, right there. Just so I was, and I knew that we had the ability to issue a franchise fee, because I mean, when we established the new ordinance probably 12, 13 years ago, it has a franchise fee in it for 0. So we created it, we just left it at 0. So, pondering it in 2023 and on Veterans Day, I'm like, well, we got to do something. Our property taxes are going to keep shrinking. We got to do something to keep figuring out how to fund it. I'm like, maybe it's time to do the franchise fee. So I reached out to Denny, called him, and I said, hey, if I do this, what do you want for an impact? What do you want the force to look like, and how would you set it up? And again, it was like, you don't have to answer me now, but figure that out next couple of weeks, because I want to present this to the council as an action item that we might want to head in that direction.
Nice. That was a heck of a phone call to say, hey, here's some money. What do you think?
And it was ironic because we were both in our office, like he said, on a holiday working. But sometimes that's when you get stuff done, when it's just nice and quiet. But yeah, he brought it up to me, and then I met with some of my staff, my management team, and we just started kind of trying to decide, what would you do with this money? Like, what kind of impact can we make on, do we add to patrol? Do we add to this? And that's where we decided one to each patrol shift, because one of the biggest things you think of when you think of police is guys, girls in uniforms in a squad car. So we wanted to add that, because that is for, as far as for community, that's more officers visibility wise and more officers responding to calls. Then we thought, obviously, it would be great to add somebody to our investigations division, just to help with some of the bigger cases. And then we dreamed up this community action team, just as a different type of police officer. Like I've explained a couple different times, it's community driven in the fact they can do things in the community, whether that's events, just, having positive contact with people, and also being able to have them focus on things that, say, patrol doesn't have the time to be able to deal with because they're taking calls for service as they come in, or the investigators because they're working on homicides, or, they have large assaults, robberies. So this is how we kind of designed it, took it to David, and then we just kind of kept going back and forth, trying to tweak this, how much is it going to cost, all that. And it's amazing what we've come up with. And it's an exciting thing for Fort Dodge, in my opinion. So
I agree. Were any alternate funding options considered before deciding on this fee?
Yeah, I talked about it in some of the other questions earlier. We, again, a prior year, we had tried to add 3 and just have it paid through the general fund property taxes, and that ended up, the taxes got cut at the state level, so we didn't get it, so we had to eliminate that. There really aren't any, like, I would consider feasible and sustainable large new revenue sources like franchise fees. It's just one that's been available and that we just haven't used before. So really, it was the one that was the perfect one for this.
Perfect. I'm going to take credit for number 11 here a little bit. How do you plan to communicate the benefits of this fee to the residents of Fort Dodge?
I think one of the biggest things is going to be, and I've talked about this with people, is when we're adding these officers, I think the initial perception is people think that crime's going to go down. Well, the crime's already happening. It's just some of the stuff that maybe we're not being told, or we're not, it's not being reported to us, whatever else it is. But as we add more officers, those case numbers and all those things are probably going to go up, because hopefully we're making more arrests, we're making more of an impact in the community, whether, it's small, low-level arrests or high-level arrests, whatnot. So that will, in turn, hopefully generate more press releases. So that'll show people like, hey, we're making more arrests, and we do a great job right now. The people I have are doing what they can, but just adding more bodies will help to increase that. And hopefully people will start to see the press releases maybe aren't necessarily the homicides and the violent crime ones. Maybe that goes down a little bit. And then most of all, they'll see it by just seeing more officers out. I mean, I know that prior to me being a police officer, when you'd see an officer or a couple, you just naturally feel a little safer wherever you're at. So more visibility, people hopefully feel safer. And then that trickle down effect will just come, and hopefully the criminals decide to leave town.
Nice. I hope so. What feedback have you received from the community so far regarding these proposed fees?
Well, I guess in general, nobody likes an increase in fees or taxes or costs. I mean, it's more that people have to pay to help support their city. So, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to ignore the fact that nobody's like happy, like, yes, we want to pay more. But I think, probably worth mentioning is when we originally started this initiative back in, January, February of this year, we did get feedback that, kind of two things is one is that, hey, we want the voters to decide on this. And two is we really support this money going to the police, but some of the other sources or places you mentioned, maybe not as much. So that's kind of why we changed things. Well, one is that, the petition was filed, so it has to go to referendum. So the people do get to decide. And the second part of it is, okay, it's all going to the cops. So that's kind of how we reacted to the feedback we got.
Perfect. And good job. How does the city plan to address concerns from residents who may struggle with higher utility bills?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, like I just said, nobody, including city folks, we don't like increasing fees or taxes because you're not making people happy when you do that. And as city employees and elected officials, you're close to your constituents, so you're going to hear about it. So nobody likes it. But I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier is it's something that's needed. It's an issue that has to get worked on, has to get, you can't solve a crime, but you can't solve the crime in general, but it has to get worked on. It has to get reduced. We have to change our image, make this a safer place. And it takes resources to do it. And this is, again, like the only only revenue source we thought would actually help us solve this problem.
In your view, what are the long-term benefits of implementing this franchise fee?
Well, I mean, it goes back to that it is a sustainable revenue source. It's paid by everybody that pays a gas and electric bill. It's paid on usage. So its benefit is it will allow us to sustain a police department for a very long time. Without it, it'll be a struggle to maintain staffing, not just in police but in all departments.
Are there any exemptions or reductions available for low-income residents or seniors?
I don't know that. I know locally there isn't any provision for any exemptions. I don't know enough about whether, in a gas and electric bill, if there is exemptions. I don't know how that works.
Chief Quinn, what kind of impact do you anticipate on public safety with the additional new officers?
I'd say the biggest thing is just visibility and us. You're going to see more officers out, whether that's patrol, whether that's the community action team, investigators, community events will be attending even more, which anybody that knows me knows that's huge for me. I love going out, getting out into the community, talking to people, letting them see the other side of policing, that it's not just us pulling up in a squad car and, dealing with whatever that problem is. It's nice to actually be able to just interact with people and see that we're just like everybody else. And the long-term impact, hopefully, is that we will start to see some of that violent crime go down and watch our city continue to grow. I mean, we have great things going on right now. I want to just keep building that. So
how will the success of these new initiatives funded by the franchise fee be measured?
I think it's just that's basically the answer that I just gave. It's more public engagements, lower violent crime stats, more arrests, holding people accountable for the actions that they're taking, and just continue to keep providing the great service that we're providing now, and then just increase that and just do even better.
If the vote doesn't pass, what are the contingency plans for funding these initiatives?
If the vote doesn't pass, there is no funding source for their case for 8. There won't be any additional police officers. And I can't say that in perpetuity, but I would say in the near future, I can't see us adding officers. In fact, if the vote doesn't pass, it's going to be very difficult to sustain what we have. And I don't have a contingency plan yet, but I can tell you that if this vote fails, I'll be spending a lot of time with the city council prioritizing, okay, what's important to maintain and what are you guys willing to not do anymore, because we're just not going to be able to do the same stuff.
What role do you think that community engagement plays in the successful implementation of these fees?
Community engagement is critical in this, in the fact of, obviously we need the support of what we're doing, but the success of this, and it's not necessarily just the franchise fee, and success for public safety is the fact that I've said this at a couple different presentations I've given. There's 25,000 roughly community members here. That's 25,000 witnesses. That's 25,000 people that can help us. There's right now, if we're fully staffed, there's only 40 of us, which we're not fully staffed. If we get this, there'll be 48. That's a huge increase, but that's still just a minimal amount of officers out, patrolling and taking care of the different things in this community. We need people to be willing to step up, call us, talk to us when something does happen, eyes, ears open, communicate that to us, help us make great cases, solve crimes, put people into jail that deserve to go there. And we have people in the community to do that now, but we could always use more. And 25,000 sets of eyes, that's huge for us. And we want people to engage in that. The more that the criminals realize that the community is fed up with this type of thing and are going to help us hold people accountable, the less chance maybe people will want to commit these crimes or decide to go somewhere else to do it, because we're a unified community and we want a safe community for everyone.
Is there anything else you'd like the residents of Fort Dodge to know about this proposal?
Yeah, I guess I would say this, and this is my observation. I've been here now almost 18 years. This is the most meaningful action this city's taken to address crime and public safety in my time, and probably significant time before that. I mean, I'm confident that it'll have success and it'll reduce crime in our community, the violent crimes, and it'll make our community safer and also a better image, which is, I think, something we're all all businesses and everybody can get behind. So I think it's key to getting done. I do want to also add that the election is September 10th. There are 3 polling places: City Hall, 819 First Avenue South, Fort Dodge Community School offices, 109 North 25th Street, and First Covenant Church at 201 Avenue H. And I believe early voting is also open right now at the county courthouse.
Perfect. I already voted, so.
Good. Thank you.
No, I appreciate you guys being here, and it's always fun to do this, and this is a new thing, so we'll have to see how this works out and how many people get to see and watch it.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
Yep.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you. I do have one more thing just as an extra clip. I was talking to a person yesterday. I said I wouldn't say her name. And she asked, how do we know they're not going to add this $1 million, whatever, to the police department and then just back off the rest of the budget, out of the regular fund? So they're going to put this in there and then back off on the regular money. And I think you answered that during this talk when you said, A, it's transparent, it's going to be out there, but B, we're going to raise the staffing levels from 40 to 48. Mm-hmm. And I think that raising the staffing levels and say we're having 8 more officers spends that $1 million pretty quickly. To say, this isn't forever. We're going to be doing this. We're going to have higher staffing levels. We're going to have more police officers. So the franchise fee does go towards that, the police and more officers on the street. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. The commitment is to have the 48 officers. People have asked me the similar question, and I also give them the answer. Is I don't know what future years look like as far as how much property taxes there is. So to say that, how much taxes is this department or that department going to get in future years, we don't know until it happens, because it's a very fluid issue. It's not that stable on what our property taxes are going to be year in, year out. But I think with this in place, I think there's a guarantee that you're going to have a police department with the 48 officers, right, and fully staffed and fully equipped, for a long time.
So adding the 8 officers and having that in there and having it, the city council, we're going to have 48 versus 40 officers, spends that money where everybody thinks it's going to be spent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Thanks. I just wanted that answered so we can put a clip and I can send it to her to say I answered your question for you.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.